Welcome everyone to still another Juran webinar, a series that began in 2014. So nearly every month since then, Joe DeFeo has shared with all of us who listen and those who then listen to the recording, the wisdom of the Juran philosophy, methodologies, and outlook, which is very important to what we're talking about today, because this is a growing, developing body of knowledge focused on quality as it was in the beginning, but picking up so much more. So now we're focusing on culture of excellence. I suspect that anyone on here now is here because they're intrigued about what that means. And Joe's going to get us deep into that in the next few minutes. By the way, there was some technical difficulty, so some people may be joining us late. We're definitely recording this whole webinar, and it'll be sent out to all participants who waited at the door when we couldn't open. No further ado, Joe, talk to us about the foundation.
Thank you, Dr. Juran, and welcome everyone. The more we have technology, the more we fail at times from that technology, which is a good lead into our fifth part in this webinar series. Thank you for joining. This fifth part is about the foundation. We call it the foundation, and if you participated in prior webinars, or you just pause for a moment and think about building a house, the house cannot be built without a strong foundation that can support the entire house. If your house is your organization, then you need a strong foundation to support it. Prior to this webinar, we had launched this series to help organizations understand how to improve their business performance and how to get their arms around all this continuous improvement activity and excellence activities. We began with the first series, which was building the first, the first session, which was building a culture of excellence. And with that, we defined the framework and we started to walk through the framework, which we wanted to focus first on business results and the business benefits. Second, the Juran model, which is the model we use to think about what are those essential elements of an organization's culture and what should be in it. The fourth was a description of the framework itself, in other words, how you tie all these quality improvement, quality by design, employee engagement, leadership, all into one. And that is followed up today with the foundation, which we're going to go deeper into some of the things we have to do to actually change a culture. The next episode, the next series, will be the enablers, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, and then following is a roadmap. We hope you enjoy this series. So if you recall from last time, or if you're new, we're building this house of quality, this house of excellence, and early we focused on the results of any business improvement initiative. And if you are trying to create a culture of excellence, more than likely you have some business improvement initiative, whether you call it transformation, whether you call it continuous improvement, whether you call it Lean or Six Sigma, you're calling it something, but you're calling it something as the mechanism to help you achieve business results. We see those business results in the form of better sales because we have better products and services. We see them in reduction of costs and optimal costs because we have more efficient processes and better data to drive those processes, and because we have loyal customers who are willing to come back and purchase our goods and services or use our services if you're a public agency. And that comes because our customers are having great experiences. So whether we look at our sustainable results as the financial aspect of it or the physical aspect of it, in other words, the financial is sales, cost, and loyalty. The physical is the products, services, processes, and great experiences they get. We also note that we can't get those unless we have enablers in place that help us drive that. But those enablers aren't going to happen just on their own. We have to create a foundation that enables us to have innovation and design, that enables us to create breakthroughs in process and product improvement. And we need to have a quality management system to maintain that. If you look deep into those words, it's the Juran trilogy of quality by design, which is planning, quality of control, which is the quality management system, and quality of improvement. This, as we see it, are the enablers to make better products and more efficient processes. And you can't do that without the engagement of your workforce. But you can't get an engaged and accountable workforce unless you first engage them and help them be accountable. So what we're going to talk about today are those things that will lead us to the enablers. And then in the next session, we're going to talk more about the enablers. We built our house from the results to the foundation to the middle. It might sound strange to you, but if we're thinking about building a house, we already have a plan in mind and we want to achieve it. So our results essentially are the business plans. And then we want to begin building that house from the foundation up. So here we are. Building a house of excellence, we need to build a good foundation. And the foundation, as we describe it, is the organizational infrastructure, methods, tools, metrics that you need to get there. Now, I found this quote from Henry Kravis, who's a famous I guess you would call him venture capitalist. He's founder of KKR, and KKR buys companies, makes them better in most cases, and sells them. He was made famous by the big, huge leverage buyouts over the last few decades. But his statement stuck with me. If you build that foundation, both the moral and ethical foundation, as well as the business foundation, and the experience foundation, then the building won't crumble. I'd like to interpret that and how it means something to us here. If we build a foundation that includes the right things to do to enable the organization to change from its current culture to a better and more productive culture, we're not going to do that without crossing the moral, the ethical, the business, and the experience. And if we do that, and this is one of the reasons why change takes long and longer than we'd like, we're not just trying to make quick results with a business improvement or culture of excellence. We are trying to change the company to make sustainable benefits and so that it doesn't crumble. And that way, I like this quote as a lead-in to our session today. Building your excellence organization starts with a strong foundation. And if you looked historically at some of our writings, some of my own understanding, we always said that the goal of a business improvement initiative should be to achieve the strategy. And the more we said that, the more experience we gained, the more I realized you can't build a culture of excellence, you can't build a great company unless you first make that choice. So we have changed our thinking and put the strategic choice to be the best in the foundation. In other words, an organization cannot be great unless it has a good strategy as part of its foundation. If you don't have that strategy, all these continuous improvement initiatives, all these initiatives in general, are probably trying to drive some short-term improvements and will go their way after those improvements are not found. If you're trying to get sustainable improvements, stick with us through this discussion. What do we mean by strategic choice to be the best? Here's a few examples. You may dislike the products, but as organizations, here's a couple examples, one in a tech world and one in an old style world. Their declaration on paper, to me, when any organization puts a declaration, a statement of who we are on paper, I see it as a contract between the company and the people reading it, hence the customer. So Adobe's vision to move the web forward and give web designers and developers the best tools and services in the world. They've defined who their customers are, their web designers and developers, and giving them the best. AK Steel, dedication to safely producing the highest quality steel products for our customers. Patagonia, great company if you're a hiker or a fitness person or just a great all-round gear person, building the best product, cause no harm, use the business to inspire, to deal with our environmental crisis. When you think about Patagonia, you don't just think about the product you buy, you think about what they stand for. They're not just there for us, they're there for society. Cleveland Clinic in healthcare, one of the typical examples, and there are many good examples, striving to be the world's leader in patient experience, clinical outcomes, and continue to do that through research and education. Amazon's in the public eye a lot lately, but how can you fight their vision statement to be the most customer-centric company in the world? And if we added 100 others like this, you'd start to see a pattern. And there's also thousands others that don't include statements about being the best. But we are about being the best. And what's unique about these companies, they all are making a public statement they want to be the best. Not the cheapest or the biggest, but the best. Without a strategy or vision or compelling guidelines in the organization to be the best, why bother with a culture of excellence? It's just going to utilize the tools, the methods, and the governance to pursue profit over performance, short-term over long-term. It's just not worth pursuing. If you are an organization that has a strategy to be the biggest, if you have a strategy to be the lowest price producer, if you have a strategy to cut costs, or if you have no strategy and all you do is try to cut costs, there's a pretty good chance you could use this webinar, but there's also a pretty good chance you're not participating in this webinar. Second part of the foundation is building a supportive infrastructure for change, using the right methods and the tools and metrics that go along with it. So often, we hear an organization that wants to improve its performance, and they say, we want to implement a lean program. We want to implement Six Sigma. We want some projects. We want some green belts. We want some black belts. That is a great starting point, but those methods in itself, brought into a company, are not in itself going to drastically change that company. Yes, you will improve the skills of your people, but it's not just having better tools. It's creating an environment that allows us to utilize those methods and tools. How often has your organization said, we want to achieve 99% customer satisfaction, and they put a new metric out there, but there's no support to achieve the metric? And when we start talking about everyone is accountable for the metric, and when we say everyone's accountable for something without supportive structures, no one's accountable. So what the first things we have to grasp is, why is changing the infrastructure so important? And the infrastructure are the physical and organizational structures that allow us to act differently in a new changing environment. A way to think about that is take a look at the organizational structure in itself. This is a typical hierarchical organizational structure, which allows us to stratify or break our departments up into individual segments like marketing and sales, research and development, HR, education, ops, whatever it is, customer service, and the like. And we do that for a reason. It's very easy to manage our functions with a level person or a high level person, a lower level person, and even lower level people, just the hierarchy. This organizational structure is what allows us to have an organization and create products. But we learn quickly over time that we don't always get the best product, the best service, the most efficient costs. We create a lot of confusion. We create a lot of miscommunication. And why that all happens is because this organizational structure doesn't allow for understanding clearly how we pass things off to each other to create our products and services and meet customer and business expectations. In other words, if you follow it horizontally, we each contribute to the overall output of great patient and customer satisfaction and the overall goodness of our business performance. And even some departments have more clout than others. But it could also be someone very small in a low level of the organization that prevents success from happening. So what we need to do is build an infrastructure. We have to figure out how to get these people together, to talk together, to work together. And that comes from some form of thinking about our end-to-end processes in a way that builds bridges between one department and another, one function and another, one business unit and another, one product group and another. And by understanding the intricacies of that, we can understand better how our outputs as processors are meeting our customers' needs better, and that our suppliers are providing us better information, and we're providing them better information, and the world goes round and round. One of the best ways to do that is with some form of governance, steering teams, councils, etc. Yes, most of you have a leadership team. Some of you even have a governance council. But what makes them work is they're linked. The leader of the leadership team sits on the governance council that helps steer the organization in a given direction in a more day-to-day methodology. That governance council may have local steering teams or quality councils or excellence councils. Why are they there? They are there to help give approval to navigating this process across this organization. And when you do that, you start to get people to talk about what's wrong with these processes, what's wrong with our satisfaction, what's wrong with our metrics, and mobilize to change it. We then mobilize by creating projects and teams and initiatives that can break down the barriers in this organization and truly get at the heart of what's preventing success. We then use the methods of process analysis, process improvement, lean and Six Sigma and operational excellence to help deal with that. And yes, part of process analysis says we have to look at our data and our metrics, and good process improvement always ends with better metrics. So we want to think about our organizational structure in a way that links us better together and not just through the functional hierarchy. And when we start doing that, we create projects that can be managed. And those projects can be managed, they can be small or big. But what we start to do is we start project by project improving our performance, because project by project, our waste and our defects and our deficiencies and our dissatisfaction decrease. So if we want to improve, there's only one way to do that, and that's project by project, process by process, solve problem by problem, not just make everyone accountable. What we want to make accountable is a group of people focused on a specific problem to make it go away. And what's a good project? It's a problem that we mandate for solution. We agree that we have a deficiency. So let's give these 3 people the responsibility to do it. Let's support them. Let's review them. Let's give them the skills. Let's give them the training. And project by project, waste by waste declines. And the reason why we're so strong about saying it this way is because there's really no other way to do it. It's not magic. It's not magic in the sense of a methodology. It's magic in that we finally accept the fact that we have to change this problem, this process, this dissatisfaction, and get rid of it. Some of you might say, I've been down this path before, it doesn't work. Well, if it doesn't work, it may have been that you didn't make it work, or there was something wrong, or you found some magic potion that works, and I'd love you to share it with us. Now, at this point, before I move into the methods, I'd just like to check back with Dave and see how we're doing.
Doing well, Joe. I'm looking at this slide right now, and I see project, project, project. That means team, team, team. Interdisciplinary team, interdisciplinary team, interdisciplinary team. And I'm also thinking about the most recent women's soccer champions, the World Championship. In a way, you don't even see all the organization behind the women out on the field. But when they're out on the field, they're being watched very closely. And they have all the drive to be the best, to win game after game. I'm asking you, Joe, a little bit more about the quality of the teams themselves that make these projects happen, because I think they have to have that same sort of spirit that we see in these extraordinary athletes.
Well, I think the analogy you're making is actually a really good one for not just the team, but the whole concept of culture of excellence. So
Hmm.
any good athletic team are individuals like functions working together across functions to score goals and win. And when they show up to play, each of us only touch the ball 2 or 3 minutes in the game, if that much. And so
Yep.
when we touch that ball, we want to make sure we do it well. And so prior to that game, we have facilities that help us exercise. We practice individually. We practice on our skills. The goalie practices alone. But when it comes to game time, we have our leader and our counsel steering us, and each of
Hmm.
us are playing. So from the overall big picture, it's a good analogy. From the team itself, the only difference is that we don't need teams of 11, teams of 12 all the time. We just need the right people to work together to coalesce long enough to make the improvement happen. But what we do start to build project by project this way is a bigger team. And
Yep.
and so that bigger World Cup soccer team in the organization. And it's interesting, Dr. Juran used to say, we change a culture not just project by person. Leaders change in single file. So business units change in single file. So we need to change a department working together with another department. Those two departments start feeling good. Then we get more doing it, and more business units start feeling good, and we grow and grow and grow. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't want to do the hard work, but there really is no other way. Now, some teams do need the structure of a World Cup soccer team, product development teams, design
Mm.
teams, which are more complex and bring in more ideas and different ideas. Smaller projects like a process improvement team can be scoped smaller with smaller people, and they're not going to stay together very long, but they're going to stay together long enough to form, storm, norm, and conform. And so they learn to be better with each other. We've always found that people who work on a team together will always remember that experience and always treat those people nicer after the team. Which,
Hmm.
by the way, not everybody in an organization may participate in a team, but everybody in the organization at some point is going to be affected by someone who has, and that starts to build a much happier place to work. Okay, thanks for the
Thanks.
question. So, where does that leave us with the next piece of this? Well, that brings us to the methods. If I could show, if I could see a show of hands out there, and I do this in my conferences or meetings, how many of you feel that your organization has had new methods every couple of years, every couple of weeks, every couple of hours? And you'd all put your hands up. Why are they doing that? Well, because they're trying to find a solution. In the absence of governance and in the absence of an infrastructure, a lot of these methods look good. Heck, if I understand the Pareto principle and I get my employees to understand the Pareto principle, we'll focus on the most important things. That's true. Or if I could teach people how to uh, process map or do a flow chart, we'll all go around understanding how to do that. Or if I teach people how to do root cause analysis, they'll know how to do that. And those are all good. And they're all trying to solve a problem in sometimes very complex organizations. The difficulty you have as an employee, the difficult leaders have, is knowing if they're really beneficial enough for the long term. And unfortunately, some may not, some morph. If you were in a quality circle years ago, to morph to a quality improvement team, to a Six Sigma team, to a TQM team, to a Lean Six Sigma team. The heart of it is the same. We're making teams work together to make improvements, but it morphed in terms of what we learned about teaming, what we learned about process, how the organization is changing. What makes them really stick is you got a good structure behind it, supporting it. But if you do, you also still have to pick the right method. And the right methods tend to evolve, particularly if you think about the last decade with technology improvements and stodgy old quality improvement methodologies and quality management systems and business excellence systems. You might think they're stodgy, but some of them are the right methods and they have some great tools. You just have to pick the right ones. So, a couple of thoughts on right tools. Simple is good. Um, Simple is even better when you don't change what you read in the book. I'm doing a lengthy research on different terminology around root cause corrective action, root cause analysis. When I started out my career, we didn't use the word root cause analysis. There was Kepner-Trago analysis of problem solving. There was Juran's quality improvement for breakthroughs and a few others, but we didn't really use the words root cause analysis. That kind of came in as more and more people said, hey, really what you're trying to do is find root cause. So let's do more root cause analysis. And then all of a sudden we have this phrase, root cause analysis. Then everybody wants to learn root cause analysis. And then Six Sigma comes along and it's kind of a broad root cause analysis. And pretty much we're getting more complex and more complex. And what we're finding is that simple root cause analysis is good for a sporadic problem, and Six Sigma root cause analysis is good for a big problem. So here we have simple methods that get more complex. And at the same time, sometimes we don't share them. So we got to have methods that are shareable, and we learn them and practice them and promote them and even see leadership practice them. So whatever right method you have. Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I have been doing this 35 years and I've never seen these methods fail if you do them well and do them right. And I'm going to lump them into three buckets. Once again, the trilogy buckets of design or planning, control or compliance, and improvement. So on the left, agile, quality by design, designed for Six Sigma, DMADV. These are all methods to help us get excellent products and services. If you don't try some of these methods, you might be taking too long to develop your services. You may not understand how to grasp what the customer is trying to say and turn that into features. You may not have really great processes that enable your features to turn them into real live selling products. At the same time, we could have great products or poor products and have quality assurance, quality control, quality management systems that are controlling them or not controlling, depending how good they are. So we need to have methods to understand how our processes are performing. Statistical process control like methods, root cause corrective action like methods, CAPA, quality assurance, quality control. ISO 9000 is a form of control. It dabbles a little bit in design and a little bit improvement, but it's really there to maintain compliance. And lastly, we can't comply ourselves to improvement. We have to have some kind of continuous improvement methodology. And these have been evolving too. But there's also a roadmap that we tend to find in organizations that are successful at getting to business excellence. That is, you already have products and services. You already have some level of performance, and you are already controlling that performance with quality control, quality assurance, quality management, compliance officers, safety, environmental. You're doing a lot of control. So the roadmap tells you to begin with improvement. Understand what some of your deficiencies are. Begin with improvement, simple improvement, small projects, grow as you get better at it, break down barriers, do more and more and more. And as you start to find more time with your organization, start to design better, start to plan better, start to get better understanding of customers. Start to think of the customer not just as someone who receives our product and service, but someone who we have to satisfy beyond our product and service. Think about them in terms of an experience. What is it like when they make their first phone call, go on their first web journey to find who you are, or meet you face to face for the first time? What is the experience like? And you start to grow and expand your thought process, which then now leads to better processes, which are now controlled, and we must comply at a higher level. Organizations get so bogged down in compliance, they forget to improve. Others get too bogged down in improvement, they forget to comply. Others forget they got to design new products. So simple, balance, leadership supported, and do your homework on what works and what doesn't work. I'll bet 99 out of 100 of you heard Six Sigma doesn't work, Lean doesn't work, OpEx doesn't work. It only doesn't work usually because you don't understand what you want to work and what your expectation is. Because for every failure, there's 1,000 other companies who are doing great with it. The other part of that is once you have a method, there are tools. Tools help us carry out a method. If I'm going to build a house of excellence and that house is made out of wood, there's a method to building a house out of wood. You first have a concrete foundation. You then build a box. You build your walls. You build the next box. You build the floor, and so on. And you use various tools to do that. You use hammers, you use saws, you use hammer guns, you use nails. And there are also inspectors, and periodic times we come by to check things. We have rulers, we have levels, we have people checking on us. So if we're building a culture of excellence and we have methods, we also need tools to carry out those methods. So as soon as you say we want to do root cause analysis, that says I need to have some data. I need to have information that tells us what the cause is. And to not waste too much time, I need to separate the cause from the noise, the fact from the fiction. That gives us tools of data. And data comes in different types. And with different types of data comes different types of way to plot data and show data and analyze data. So hence we need various tools. We also need organizational tools, tools that help us get people to work better together in a meeting, in a team, better to get their ideas on the table, innovative type things like brainstorming, or cause and effect, like cause and effect diagrams and the like, 5 whys. These are tools that aid us. And sometimes the tool in itself is a method. People will say a 5 why is a method. Yes, it is. But it really is a tool as part of trying to find cause and effect. You don't just do cause and effect for the sake of cause and effect. You do it in a problem-solving journey. So our tools become important. And our metrics then change because our data that we're analyzing, the information we're getting might say we're measuring the wrong things. We're measuring in the wrong way. Or we realize we need to have more goals, and with new goals come new metrics. Organizations that set out too many metrics without the supportive methods, tools, methods, and infrastructure get very frustrated. And here's a good example. One of the new metrics that organizations tend to like to have is a cost of quality metric. Let's calculate by estimating the cost of poor quality. Let's take a look at the money we're spending on trying to get good quality, and let's try to continuously improve on both of those. Week after week, month after month, we post cost of poor quality reports, and nothing changes. It stays the same. One reason is that metric of cost of poor quality is a metric that no one owns. It's a metric that cuts across the organization. It's a metric that is cross-functionally owned, and therefore a steering team or governance council or leadership team must own it, must decide which piece of the cost of poor quality we want to eliminate and improve, assign it resources to it, with as a project, get people, which is a team, and go solve it. So in other words, that metric isn't going to change unless you drive something to change it. There are other metrics that we tend to think every individual is going to drive. We're going to increase the customer experience, and we're all going to be held accountable. Yet none of us really know what the customer wants at my level in the organization. All I know is the customer next to me who receives my goods. And if we don't have some coordinated effort around being accountable, then we're going to create sub-optimization, and you can actually see the customer experience decrease. So having the right tools and then hence the right metrics force us into a change in itself. Now, when you think about tools and metrics, 5 whys are a great way to think about cause and effect. And it's a good tool to get people comfortable with getting them to think about a problem. I was in an organization recently that had a piece of equipment fail. And historically, they would talk about it. And I suggested doing a simple Kaizen to get them comfortable. And the leader went in there and said, okay, we're going to do a 5 why. And they kind of piqued their interest. They started realizing that there are other things they should think about. And then they expanded it into a cause and effect diagram. And they started getting a little bit more detailed. And then they each were given an assignment, and they came back a week later. And in that assignment, they realized that they had one area that they needed some data on. And they plotted that data, and they saw so much variation, which led them back to the simple cause and effect to say what could be causing that. In other words, they didn't use it to define root cause yet, but they got them interested in wanting to find root cause. Now they're off on a more measurement and analysis activity that is going to lead to that root cause. Now, in that same organization, they had some limited set of metrics that told them how well they were doing. They had scrap, they had rejects, but they didn't know why they had rejects. And now through this simple 5 why and root cause analysis, as they expand it to, they get there. If we try to teach them too much too fast, you're not going to get where you want to go. The same thing with metrics. Limited set of metrics that are going to help support some of the short-term changes versus the long-term changes. You'll get faster to where you want to go. I mentioned some of the tools. We all see these tools. They have a purpose. They help us see the process in a way we've never seen it before. And as a result of that, enable us to make changes we weren't able to make before. And these are the simple tools, simple charts. And there's hundreds of charts to use, but each has a purpose. Try to get to know them in the way you need to. Many Japanese manufacturing companies make sure every employee knows these 7 basic tools because they're easy to interpret and helpful to manage and become accountable. We believe no employee can be accountable unless they have 3 elements of control. 1, they know what they're supposed to do. What's the goal? 2, they know how they're doing. Show me the data. And 3, if I'm not meeting the goal, can I change that? That is the quality control feedback loop applied to each of us. So how could you hold me accountable if I don't have a goal? How could you hold me accountable if I don't know how well I'm doing to the goal? And how could you hold me accountable if I can't adjust the process to meet the goal? Accountability comes when you do that. So these are things that help us get there. So if you're now been hanging out with me for 5 sessions, you're starting to see this build, this house of quality, this house of excellence, this great, wonderful organization. And it all starts to kind of fit together. If you have your own house of excellence or house of quality, what we want you to do, besides call us for our help, we'd love to work with you, is to ask yourselves the question, does my house of quality make sense? Are the methods I'm choosing the right methods? Are we really creating enablers in the organization that are going to drive products and services, better process, better experiences? Or are we missing something? So use this as a guide to compare yours. Use this as the building blocks to build yours, whatever it may be. But all in all, you're going to have to come back another time if you want to get the chunk in the middle. And I will tell you this, this could be weeks and weeks of discussion. We're going to do it in one session. But I think it'll help you understand how to fit your quality management system in with your product design and development, with your continuous improvement and operational excellence program, along with we want to get employees engaged. So I hope you guys all come back, and I hope that you will pass this webinar on to your friends, and I hope you will join us again. But before we do that, I would like to go back to Dave if there's any other questions.
Oh, well, another hour? No, I'm kidding. I've been fascinated throughout this presentation, Joe, because I come back to that analogy on the field. I think the payoff, there's going to be a payoff here along with other results, and that is the feeling that you're in a winning organization, that you are getting better and you're even getting better than your competition. And every time you see sales rise and return customers, you got to get that feeling of this has been a great day. And I know over the years you've been out in many, many organizations, Joe, but what about that spirit of winning? Can they also bring that out more as they build their houses, their culture of excellence?
The analogy could continue this way. This is built over time. The World Cup soccer winner is built over time. So in the short term, the small piece of that team, the people that are working together on the field, their coaches and some support structure, they start winning, and they start winning games, or they play better and they lose, or play better and tie, play better and win. And they're building camaraderie, they're building skills, they're getting better at it. And then eventually they win local tournaments, and then they win regional tournaments, and then they win national tournaments, and then they win global tournaments. Same thing as a company. As we begin to build this culture, we're starting to win in small pieces, small teams, one team at a time, 10 people at a time, 100 people at a time, and we grow and expand. Eventually, the goal is to get to that result, which is a culture of excellence, which is best described as that when each of us respect each other as a customer and a supplier, and each of us can keep an open feedback and dialogue, we can continually improve the performance of the business. And at the same time, as an employee, my leaders do that to me and I do that to them. So there's no question that you will get to a culture that is a strong team-based culture. But I've never found an organization try to build teamwork without all these other things.
Well, thanks a lot, Joe. And I hope everyone will join us again in the last Wednesday in August to look more closely now at those enablers that are on the screen. In the meantime, you can always get to the Juran webpage, send messages to Joe and other members of the Juran team. Let us know what you're experiencing. And by the way, share some of your wins with us. We'd love to hear successes that are happening out there as a result of what you're applying in regard to not only the Juran methodology, but any others. We just want to hear about winning. So thanks a lot, Joe. And this is the end of our webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.